I'm making this video mainly for real estate investors or people that want to be a real estate investor and have a little bit of inside information and real life examples of what it's like to, over the last 12 months in 2023, be a real estate investor and the pros and cons and what's going on. So I've been a real estate investor for about 7 years now. So I'm a real estate investor and I also sell real estate actually as part of my day job. I'm a realtor in Orange County, California. And so I have kind of a unique experience of being a realtor, but also a real estate investor. So that's kind of where I'm at. Over the last 12 months in 2023, with rates going up like crazy and just a lot of adjusting and a lot of kind of chaos in the real estate market, real estate investing has stayed. There's been some hurdles with acquiring additional investment property. So it's very challenging to find a deal that makes sense to purchase, especially if you want to put 20 or 25% down. In most cases, if you put 20 or 25% down on an investment property, you're not going to have any profit. There's not going to be any cash flow or anything like that. So that's been one challenge as far as acquiring new real estate. I wanted to acquire some more this year, but I haven't found the right opportunity that makes the most sense for myself. But before we get into like acquiring more and should you invest in real estate right now, even with high interest rates, I would like to share a little bit of what I've witnessed and experienced with managing my own 10 rental properties and the locations and where they're at, and some of the hurdles and successes I've had. So in 2021, in December, I had purchased 9 properties in just outside of Dallas. So one's I got some property in Irving and then also a single family home in Plano, Texas. So it makes up 9 doors altogether, 9 different tenants. And over the last, really since February of 2023, I started noticing rents started kind of seizing a little bit. So I wasn't able to get, another 5 or 10% more than the year before. I was able to get basically the same rent for most of my units. And so I really felt that in February of 2023. Right now we're beginning of December. So I felt that in February, and then really for the rest of this year, it took on average for the properties I have in Irving, Texas, about 30 days to find a qualified tenant that would pay the same rent as last year. And so I wasn't used to that because the year prior to that in 2022, I would have within 2 weeks, I would have 5 or 6 really good applications, and I was able to scale the rent a little bit more each year. So I came from that to now this year, starting February, I actually had to kind of work for it and do a little bit more cleaning and updating of the properties and make it a little bit more show ready in order to get the same rent. And it took about 3 to 4 weeks. It just kind of depended on the month and the season. So that's what I've seen. Rents be it just takes a little bit more time. You got to be a little bit more negotiable. And I had to work with people a lot more on their situation. If they had a little bit lower credit, I would ask for a little bit higher deposit. So stuff like that. So that's been more the con. It's taken longer and I got the same rent. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that I actually scaled the rent tremendously over the last 18 months. So there is one point of view that I really had about 4 years worth of rent appreciation within 1 year. So I'm not super unhappy that I'm still at the same rent as of this time last year, but obviously as a real estate investor, I want rents to continue going up, and they will. But I believe what I had about 4 years worth of a rent of appreciation, and then I flat for another year. And I think into 2024, I should be able to scale a little bit more rent appreciation. I have had some tenants have some issues with paying rent, and we've had to work out a plan there. That hasn't been the majority though. I don't want to say that Texas is completely has turned for the worse. That is not my experience. It's been a little bit different than what I started with, and I've had to adjust my expectations and be a little bit more, I would say, just cooperative with the tenant versus before I've been able to just say take it or leave it. So that's been some of the cons. Now, I do have one rental in Southern California that I've had the same tenant for 6 years now, and it's been going well. I have no issues with that tenant. That tenant hopefully will stay for another 5 or 10 more years, ideally. I'm actually trying to help him purchase a property in the near future because I don't want him to be, even though I want him to be my tenant forever, I also, professionally for him, want him to be, a homeowner and have control over his monthly payment, his monthly housing payment. But switching gears to acquiring new properties. So it's been, I was hoping to buy another 4 or 8 properties in 2023, and I haven't purchased any additional for a couple of reasons. The main reason is that it's very challenging to make the deal pencil out if you put 20, even if 30% down. I have the clients that I see now that are investing into real estate and buying real estate to invest, they're putting 50% or more down, or even sometimes cash, and then waiting for rates eventually one day to go down, and then they're going to do a cash out refinance and leverage their way up into additional properties. So I have a couple clients right now in December, they're doing that, and there's a couple point of views with that, because the Fed has talked about lowering rates, and I think just recently last week they've talked about they're going to lower rates 6 times into 2024. We'll see if they actually do that. Hopefully they do. But as rates come down, I think it would be almost impossible for rates to stay at 7% forever. So as rates come down, I think that property values are going to continue scaling up. So you get today's home prices. So that's a positive there. It has been hard to make deals pencil out. But what I am looking at doing now is I'm looking for sellers that are in a position where they would offer some sort of seller finance deal or an owner carryback for 5 or 7 years. That way I have some flexibility to have a manageable payment today, and then gives me an option to refinance in the near future. That's one way. I've actually had one client find a property in Orange County to do that, which is a little bit unheard of, because not too many sellers are in a position to want to do a seller carry. There are advantages for sellers, especially if they're older and they have a high tax payment or tax liability. They can, instead of taking all their cash out once they sell, if they do offer a seller carryback to the buyer, then it can spread out their taxable gains over years versus in 1 year. So there is that benefit. And sometimes people don't know where to put their money, and so having some interest in a fixed monthly payment with a real estate asset to take over, or to default on or to foreclose on if the buyer doesn't make their payment. So that seller carry, there's many benefits for the owner offering that to a buyer, but not everybody wants to do that because it is a little complicated and it can get messy, but that's what attorneys are for. So, but putting deals together, finding properties where the seller wants to do an owner carry, that is definitely something that I'm looking at, not only here in Orange County, but also in Texas. But I'm hoping that into 2024, as rates come down a little bit, it can make that affordability and making that 25 to 30% down on an investment property, where that there is some cash flow with given the income of the property. If you have any questions on this, feel free to reach out to me.